G'day guys and welcome back to another video on the channel. Today we are here with the round 3 tips and predictions, and we're also going to go over the round 2 tips and predictions. Before we get into the video, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel as we are on the road towards 2k subscribers by hopefully the end of the footy season. But yeah, without further ado, let's get straight into the round 2 tips. Alrighty, so in round 2 we got a total score of, this is embarrassing, 3 out of 8. Horrible round of tipping. We started off well, Carlton versus Hawthorn, kind of an easy tip in my opinion. Hawthorn got the job done by 20 points and I was 3 points off the actual margin. Carlton put up a decent fight throughout the entire game, but obviously Hawthorn just dominated for the majority of the game. But yeah, not majority, but in that last quarter is where Hawthorn just started to absolute smoke Carlton. Carlton put up a fight for 3 quarters and they just lost their ability to score in that fourth quarter, getting only 4 behinds. And then moving on to Western Bulldogs taking on Collingwood. I tipped Collingwood and we got that tip correct. Western Bulldogs led for like a half and then Collingwood just took over in the second half. And it was a very strong finish, can't lie. It was probably one of the best games of the round in my opinion, with Collingwood winning only by a goal. And then Saturday is where we plummet with our tips. I tipped Essendon on the Saturday morning and they got the job done by 61 points. That was the highest scoring game I've probably ever seen in the AFL. 261 points scored in an AFL match. That is just insane. Adelaide are just dominating this year. Adelaide are just dominating. And they dominated for like majority of the game as well, which is just very embarrassing. Very embarrassing. And then Port Adelaide taking on Richmond at the Adelaide Oval. After seeing Richmond's performance last week, I really thought Richmond could have actually had a chance to beat Port Adelaide, especially Port Adelaide losing by who knows how much to Collingwood in round 1. Port Adelaide got the job done in the end, 140-68, and Richmond are back to where they were in horrible gameplay. And then the night game on the Saturday at Marvel, St Kilda Geelong. I tipped Geelong and Geelong couldn't get the job done over the St Kilda Saints. Seems to be a little bit of a tradition for Geelong to lose St Kilda at Marvel Stadium. I'm pretty sure the last couple of times at Marvel Stadium that Geelong played against St Kilda, I believe that they lost against St Kilda there. So yeah, because I think they lost to them last year there. I don't remember. Alright, now on the Saturday, Brisbane taking on West Coast. Now, I think everyone tipped Brisbane, but West Coast had a first quarter of an absolute lifetime, nearly leaving bloody Brisbane goalless in that first quarter, which is absolute insane. And we held out the lead as well in that second quarter as well, but Brisbane just started to get a comeback roving, getting within 3 points by the end of the third quarter, and then just dominating the rest of the game in that fourth. We just didn't have too much juice left in the tank from probably the middle of the third quarter. And oh my god, I'm shocked that this happened. North Melbourne taking on Melbourne. North Melbourne absolutely smoked Melbourne by 59 points. Absolute shock. Jack Darling's 300th and showed absolute. It was just an absolute masterclass by the Kangaroos. Darling kicked 2 goals in that game. Zerha kicked 4. And Melbourne just looked super sad out there. They looked very bad. And then the last game of that round, Optus Stadium. Fremantle taking on Sydney. Sydney got the job done by 3 points with Joel Amartey kicking a goal in the last minute. For some reason, Freo fans think Jai Amos marked the ball before the siren in the last 2 seconds. It was legit right after the siren. It was not a mark. So Fremantle fans, stop crying. Anyway, let's move into our round 3 tips and predictions. Starting off on the Thursday, 27th of March, 4:30 p.m. at Marvel Stadium. Essendon taking on Port Adelaide. Now, Essendon, they've lost 2 games in a row. They lost to Hawthorn by a couple points. They lost to Adelaide by 61, which is just, that's just bad. That's just bad for them. And last time these teams played each other, the last 3 times, in fact, Port Adelaide won all 3 of those games. It's most likely going to be another Port Adelaide win here. Essendon just played absolute bad footy out there against the Adelaide Crows. It was just a very, very sad brand of footy to see coming from the Essendon Bombers, especially with how much hype they also had and the amount of talent that they had as well. They had legit Isaac Kako, who was probably one of the worst players on ground for the Essendon Bombers against Adelaide Crows. He only got 44 fantasy points and 2 goals, 9 disposals. So, not really the best game Kako could have played. Merritt still had an absolute amazing game. 138 fantasy points, 4 goals, 36 disposals. He had an absolute outstanding game, Merritt, and so did Jordan Dawson. 134 fantasy points and 33 disposals. Both of the club captains really had a very, very, very good game. Connor Rozee and Jace Burgoyne had absolute star games for Port Adelaide. They both kicked 2 goals each. Rozee nearly got 40 disposals. Jace Burgoyne got 32 disposals. Georgiades kicked 4. Willioli kicked 3. Sam Powell-Pepper kicked 3. And Connor Rozee kicked 2, as I said earlier. Georgiades just obviously that pinpoint set shot in front of goal for Port Adelaide, and that's what really helps Port Adelaide be able to get those goals on the board. And Willioli, with his just gameplay and his craft as well out on the field, is just another way that helps Port Adelaide get these wins. Which is why in this case scenario, with the most recent performances by both clubs, we've really just... I feel like Port Adelaide's going to get the job done, and it will be a decently close one. We'll go with a 22-point win for Port Adelaide. Now, on the Friday, we have Carlton taking on the Western Bulldogs. Now, both teams coming off losses in round 2. Obviously, Carlton losing to Hawthorn, which honestly, flag hawk all the way. Let's just be real. And Western Bulldogs just lost slightly towards Collingwood, and they also had the lead for probably a half of the game. While Carlton put up a decent fight against the Hawthorn Hawks as well, where they led for a couple moments of the game as well. Carlton mainly led throughout going into the end of the second quarter and going to start of the fourth. I mean, not the fourth, the third. But yeah, in this case scenario, I can't lie, we do really have to go Western Bulldogs. They've just got the better players, and honestly, yeah, Carlton are not really the best of clubs going into this season. They're not really the best of clubs, let's be real. Tom Liberatore is going to be absolute star out there. 34 disposals, 1 goal for them against the Collingwood Magpies. Tim English is just an absolute star ruck, while Carlton, I don't even know who their ruck is. Sam Darcy kicked about 4 goals against the Collingwood Magpies, which is absolutely amazing for a young player like him. And since bloody Sam Darcy is just absolutely amazing at goal kicking, as you could tell, he's probably going to kick majority of these goals for Western Bulldogs. He's going to kick majority of them. George Hewitt and Tom De Koning had a very good games for the Blues, with George Hewitt getting 120 fantasy points, 1 goal and 28 disposals. But Patrick Cripps didn't have one of his best games that I reckon he could have had. He only had 88 fantasy points, 29 disposals, which is still good at disposals-wise, but he really could have had a better game, Cripps. But yeah, looking at both teams' performances from last week, I reckon Western Bulldogs are going to get the job done here. They've just got the better players coming into this game, and I reckon they're going to be able to perform to the best of their ability at Marvel, especially coming off a win, 6-point loss, not a win, 6-point loss to the Collingwood Magpies. I reckon they're going to at least want to win back. Moving on to the Saturday games, Melbourne taking on Gold Coast at the MCG. Now, Melbourne's performance, what can we say about Melbourne's performance? Abysmal. Absolute horrible. They lost by 59 to North Melbourne, and North Melbourne are on a rebuild. They lost to 4 old players. They lost to Darling, who's about to retire. They lost to Luke Parker, who's getting old. Caleb Daniel, who's also getting old. I don't even know what to say. Melbourne just had a horrible game, especially with Petrarca playing, especially with Oliver playing. Absolutely horrible. Gold Coast Suns' last game was against West Coast Eagles, and they absolutely dominated them by 87, which makes me really, really feel like we got to tip Gold Coast here, especially at MCG. They're going to start this year with 2 away wins, which is going to be good for Gold Coast, especially after last season. They struggled to get a win away from home. at the moment, they're doing just fine with that. So we're going to go with Gold Coast to win this game against the Melbourne Demons and probably flog them. Alrighty, then the next game at Marvel Stadium, we have St Kilda taking on Richmond. Now, this seems to be an easy tip. We're going to go St Kilda to win this game. Richmond just played an absolute bad brand of footy at the AO, but to be fair, it's at the AO. Port Adelaide fans rolled into the awards the AO for obviously their opening game of the season. St Kilda just got the job done over the Geelong Cats, which is definitely going to put on some momentum going up against the young Richmond side. But we did see the young Richmond side just struggle quite a bit out there at the Adelaide Oval. Not like how they struggled at the MCG. But yeah, I reckon we're going to go St Kilda to win this game, and it's really an easy tip, to be honest. Richmond, they're back to where they're supposed to be. They're back to where they're supposed to be. They're not really a good side. They just had one of the best luck beating the Carlton Blues the other week. And yeah, because Carlton are already on an 0-2 start. They're going to go on to lose a couple more games this year, I reckon. I've gone them to go 0-3 so far. So, yeah, it's quite obvious that bloody Richmond are probably going to lose this because Carlton just had the worst bit of luck. And St Kilda, they're on a roll so far. Obviously, they did get flogged to Adelaide Crows in the Adelaide Oval in round 1, but they also redeemed themselves by getting the job done over Geelong Cats the following week. And I reckon they'll be able to get the job done over Richmond as well. Now, a night game here at UTAS Stadium. Hawthorn taking on GWS Giants. Jesus, a night game at UTAS. Who would have thought? 7:35pm bounce. Oh, Jesus. Hawthorn play very, very good at the UTAS. Let's just say that. They play absolute amazing footy. GWS, I haven't really seen them play footy since probably round 1. Which is, yeah, obviously round 1. GWS only got the job done to Melbourne by 3 points, and seeing Melbourne's performance against North Melbourne, that just shows that North Melbourne aren't really a good side. And with GWS winning by 3 points to them, yeah, I didn't even know what else to say, really. Hawthorn are on a roll so far this year. They've gone 3-0, which is absolute insane for Hawthorn. And especially at UTAS Stadium too, I reckon we do have to really tip Hawthorn here. Hawthorn are going to go 4-0, and they're just going to absolutely dominate this year, Hawthorn. It's Flag Hock is really on. Flag Hock is truly on. Now, the other night game at the Gabba, Brisbane taking on Geelong. This game was postponed. No, moved back. I meant to say moved back to the round 3 clash after it was cancelled in opening round due to Cyclone... What was the Cyclone's name again? Cyclone Alfred, which turned out to not even come in that day. So really, that game could have still been played. But anyway, Brisbane got the job done to West Coast Eagles last week, and honestly, they had to fight for that win. They only got the lead in that last quarter, which... it's just very, very bad to see coming from a reigning premiers. Geelong just got done by 7 points to the St Kilda Saints, and that was a game where they realistically should have won, especially coming off a 70-plus point win to the Fremantle Dockers. But yeah, Neil was a standout for the Brisbane Lions against West Coast. He was a real standout, cannot lie. Geelong missed out on Baz as well this week, and last week, and I don't know if he's going to be back this week. Charlie Cameron could be back for Brisbane this week as well, which is going to be huge for the club as well. But yeah, Geelong really should have a very, very good game. I expect Geelong to have a good game, but it's at the Gabba. We really realistically got to tip the Brisbane Lions at the Gabba. Now, Sunday 30th of March 2025. I don't know why I said the year. We all know it's 2025. At the Adelaide Oval, we have Adelaide taking on North Melbourne. Now, both teams have got wins this year. North Melbourne just absolutely flogged Melbourne, and Adelaide just absolutely flogged Essendon. They both just came off huge destroying game. But obviously it's at the other Adelaide Oval, and Adelaide have been very, very dominant at the Adelaide Oval. They beat St Kilda by how many points? Like 70 points at the Adelaide Oval, and they just beat Essendon away from home at the MCG, breaking the losing at the MCG streak for the Adelaide Crows. North Melbourne, though, they do really have a good chance to win this, especially how they played against Melbourne. But to be fair, I really do not see that happening, especially with Adelaide and how dominant they have been lately at the Adelaide Oval. You really just got to tip Adelaide in these situations. So I'm going to go Adelaide to win this game. Now, the Derby finished off the round. West Coast taking on Fremantle. West Coast home game, of course. And it's a huge game on stakes. There's so much stuff on stakes. It's 18th versus 17th. Wooden spoons versus runner-ups. for the wooden spoon. Who gets the job done, lads? Who gets the job done? Now, obviously, we saw great gameplay from the West Coast Eagles against the Brisbane Lions. They nearly beat the reigning premiers from last year. Sydney have came off a couple of losses so far this season, and I don't know why Fremantle nearly lost to them. And Fremantle could have won, generally. I reckon Fremantle should have won, but they wouldn't have won by much. But to be fair, from what I saw with Fremantle last week, I do really think West Coast have a chance to win this. I really do. I really think we have a chance. The gameplay that we played, the brand of footy, Tyrell Jewell, we're getting the young guns involved as well. We're getting the young guns involved into the mix, which is absolutely great to see, especially, just to see more talent coming out of the young players. We're lucky enough to maybe see Waterman return next week, not in the derby, but next week following that. But yeah, Liam Ryan had a great game against Brisbane. He had a great game. But if I had to choose which side and the brand of footy both clubs played last week, I really think I'm going to get West Coast to win. West Coast to win in the derby. Derby 60. It's a huge derby. The 60th derby. Obviously, it's Derby 60. West Coast, I really think, should get the job done. West Coast, they've got the talent. The brand of footy they played against the reigning premiers was just absolute outstanding. Fremantle's brand of footy they played was, in my opinion, quite bad, can't lie. But yeah, I'm going to go West Coast to win this game, and West Coast will get the job done in Derby 60. Well, thank you guys for watching this video. Make sure you like and subscribe to the channel if you are new, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out.
We put my mind to rest. 2 times clicking, I'm not alone. A pound of weed and a bag of blow.